Hi everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to make these little Santa and Santa hat earrings that are made with some wire working as well as Swarovski crystals and just a head pin and an ear wire. So for this project, what you're going to need is 12 of a white or a crystal-y color bead. That's going to be for the bottom of Santa's hat and for the kind of furish around the bottom. You can also use glass pearls. They would look really nice as well. You're going to need 13 crystals in a red color. This is a SIAM color. You could also use light SIAM if you want it to be a little bit brighter. The crystal color that I used is the opal pearl or the opal white. So you're doing 13 of the hat color and then 12 of the base bottom color. In addition to that, I have a 6mm Crystal Paved Shambhala bead, and you could use that or you could substitute for another one of your little 4mm bead, so you could use that for the little ball at the end of the hat as well. I'm also going to use for Santa's face, I'm using a 14mm Crystal Paved bead. I have a 2 or a 3-inch head pin. I'm working with a 3-inch. I have an ear wire, and then the actual wire that I'm using to create this is I'm using a 20 gauge wire. I have art wire in a brown color that I'm using, and I'm also using 24 gauge wire, and I'm using this in my red. Tool wise, we're going to be using our round nose pliers. We're going to be using our needle nose pliers, bent or flat needle nose, whichever works for you, and our wire cutters. So to start my little hat here for my snowman, or for my Santa, what I'm going to use is I'm using about 10 inches of my 20 gauge wire, and I have 24 inches of my 24 gauge wire. To start, I'm going to take my thicker piece, my 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make the tiniest of loops here at the end, holding with the very end of my round nose pliers and just turning the wire over on itself to make just a little tiny loop. And then what I'm going to do is actually squash that down, just to make, again, very tiny at the end. And I'm using my needle nose pliers to do that. Once I get that squashed down nice and tiny, and you can close it all the way or keep it open a little bit, doesn't matter, I'm going to take my 6mm Crystal Pave and drop that onto the base of my wire. And that's going to hang out there to be my little cap at the end of my little Santa hat. After that, I'm going to pick up my 24 gauge wire, and I have my 24 gauge wire that I'm going to be coiling around my 20 gauge wire. To coil, I like to hold my wire, my thinner wire, so that it's intersecting my thicker wire. I hold with my left and wrap with my right. If you're left-handed, you may want to switch, do it the opposite way, but I'm going to hold it right here. It doesn't really matter where you hold your wire in proximity to your 6mm bead, because it'll slide along the wire as you coil it. So what I'm going to do is hold it, leaving a little bit of a tail here, and then I'm going to coil this wire around. So I'm coiling the thinner wire around the thicker wire. Once I have a couple coils, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to coil my tail as well. I'm going to push my tail kind of into place so that it's nice and tight against one another. And then I'm going to continue coiling with that tail. If you want to, you can also cut off the tail. The art wire in colors is rather inexpensive. With the very end then, you can either cut it off or you can take your needle nose pliers and pinch it down. I'm just going to cut off that extra little bit of wire. I'm going to slide it up to place. And then I'm going to continue doing a couple more wraps for my little end of my top of my hat. Once I have the appropriate amount, and that's going to be probably about 12 coils, and there really is no right and wrong amount here. Once I have the proper amount of coils, I'm going to slide that up into place. I'm going to take my round nose pliers now, and I'm going to make a little loop. What this loop is going to be is what you put your wire through in order to connect your head pin at the end of your Santa hat. So I'm going to take my pliers and just do a very slight, just turned loop in my thicker 20 gauge wire. So I've used my round nose pliers and I've just made a little loop in my wire. After that, I'm going to come to the other side with my wire. So the wire is just mimicking that line. And I'm going to start coiling that as well. And I'm coiling this wire around and around. Usually when I do this, I actually stand to coil the wire around. I can do it much quicker off camera than I can do it on to keep it under here for you to see. And after about 4 or 5 coils, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my first crystal. When I add my crystals, I'm going to add them to the bottom of my wire. Here, so the base of my 20 gauge wire, I'm going to add all 13 of those crystals. What I'm going to do to save time is actually put all of them on right now, and then we'll kind of slide them in place. So all of these crystals will go onto my wire and drop down next to my coils. And then I'll get them in place by coiling them into place and wrapping wire around them. Once I have all the beads on the end of my wire, all I'm going to do is just take my round nose pliers and I'm just going to curl a little loop at the end, and that way my beads won't fall off the end as I'm working with them. Going back to the start of that wire, I'm going to take my first crystal and I'm going to slide it up into place right next to my last coil. And then I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to coil 5 coils around my 20 gauge. So I'm coiling 5 times around with my wire. You can do 5, 6, it's kind of up to you. Once I have my 5 coils in place, I'm going to slide my next bead up, coil around that. So when I coil over the bead, I'm just coiling over just as if the bead wasn't even there. If you want to see the crystal shine a little bit more, you can also cut the wire right after, but this is a quicker way to do it. After my 5 loops here, I'm going to go ahead then, slide my next crystal into place, and continue doing this the whole length of this 13 crystals, putting them all in place with 5 coils in between each. So when I'm done coiling all of my crystals right in place along that line, what I'm going to do is slide the last crystal right up to that, but before that section, I'm just going to take my cutters and cut off any extra remaining wire. And I have my bead there. Then what I'm going to do is right after that, no wire in between and no coiling involved, I'm going to add all of my opal crystals. So I'm adding those all onto my 20 gauge wire as well. So they're going to load on and they're going to go right next to my other crystals that are right on here with no coiling involved. Once I put on the rest of my opaque Swarovskis here, I'm going to bend my Santa hat into its shape. You can use a ring mandrel for this, you can use a dowel. I'm just going to use my fingers. Basically, I'm going to start at the top here where my crystal pave is, and right after my loop, I'm going to hold, and I'm just going to bend my wire right around in a little bit of a circular shape, kind of letting the wire do what it wants to do. And I did forget to mention, after my beads, I did make a little tiny loop in my wire. I'm going to curl these just to make it the shape that I want it to be. And I want to force that loop to be right in the middle of my Santa hat. So if I'm looking down on the hat, that loop should be right in the middle. Give it a nice little curl with your fingers, so that way it looks like the brim of Santa's hat there. And you can even pull that top a little tighter if you want, so it makes another little layer look. And then what we're going to do is take a head pin and we're going to attach the ball to the inside. I'm going to put onto my head pin or my wire the Crystal Paved bead. Then I'm going to take my wire through the Santa hat and through that loop that I made, creating then my little earring. At the top, all I'm going to do is take my round nose pliers, turn the wire over, go over the top, make a loop. If you want, you can coil that loop, or you can simply cut it off. And close it up And then what I'm going to do is attach that to my ear wire. Just opening up the ear wire by sliding the wire portion to the side, putting the ear wire on, closing it up, and then I have my little Santa hat earrings here. You can wear to a fun, festive holiday party or just around the office or give them as gifts. They're a cute little addition to your holiday earrings. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed and get a chance to make these cute little Santa earrings here with the little balls and the pave. And if you get a chance, check out the rest of our YouTube videos. You can also visit us on Facebook, Potomac Bead Company, or you can visit us online at potomacbeads.com. Check out our locations page, and we'd love to teach you how to do these or give you the supplies in one of our stores. If you can't get to one of our stores or don't live near one, you can also shop online at thebeadco.com. Thanks a lot for watching.